We'll start with
Hi.
the JCL first.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So how you will concatenate some 3 to 4 inputs are there,
hmm
input files. So how can you
Okay.
concatenate?
So, so if we have three or four input files, so if we just need to concatenate the input file into output file, one way we could do using sort merge. Another way is just mentioning all the input file together without mentioning, just giving one DD. We could copy all the file into
So
another
we'll
file.
be giving the DD names for each and every input files.
We just need to give the DD name for first file, and then we
Okay.
just give the DSN for the other.
Okay. So it, for example, say that first input file is having um, a lesser size than the second one, and
Mhm.
like different sizes. So how you will give it? It should be mainly
So,
sorted order or
so as for the practical purpose, we should always give the largest block size in the first and the smaller in the later.
okay. Differentiate about the catalog and in-stream procedure.
Okay. First, why we require the procedure? Procedure required if you wanted to run any set of code multiple times. So, so mostly we use it the catalog procedure because in this way we could use the same kind of code in different scenario, different JCLs, or we could run the parallel job. And the in-stream procedure is if we wanted to run a particular kind of code in same GCL 2-3 times. In that case, we use the in-stream procedure. Difference is that difference wise the in-stream procedure we can use in the same GCL, and in that case, spend keyword is important. But in case of catalog procedure, it should be in the some different PDS, and we need to call that PDS. And in that case, spend keyword is not required.
Okay.
Any specific question
So,
related?
okay. For example, in catalog procedure, if you are using for a particular job, and I need to override a particular DD name, like not a DD name, particular dataset name. So how
Mhm.
can you give the override? It is inside the
So
proc we are using.
yes, so we can override it like that. We can give the, for example, and inside the proc we have the step name. Suppose that proc A, and it has a step 10, 20, 30. So if we wanted to override the step 10 and DD name is the DD10, so we can give step 10 dot DD10, and then we can give DDDS and whatever we wanted to override.
Okay. So then do you know about the positional and keyword parameters, right?
Yes.
So it is mandatory that we should give positional parameters.
Uh, uh, I- it's in some cases it's mandatory to give the positional parameter because it's a position is fixed. If we are skipping that position, then we need to mention it by mentioning this comma.
Comma. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, Explain about GDG, the parameters.
Okay. GDG. First, so why we require the GDG. Suppose that we have some job which is producing the data set every day, and maybe in a day that job is running 4 or 5 times, and if the job is running again, it will lose the previous data set. So in that case, if we use the GDG, so previous version, it will create each version for each job run. In that case, could have the relative version of uh, each job run. So GDG purpose is to have the different version of file. at one time. So,
Okay.
what was the second part of the question? Okay, what is the
Parameters.
parameter? Okay, parameters for creating the GTG.
No. How you will create the GDG first?
Okay, okay. So for creating GTG, we need to use the IDCAM utility,
Okay.
and then in that we can give the in the parameter we can give the create GTG, then DSN name, and then in the name we can give the GTG base name, and then we could give the empty, no empty, and the uh, uh, and then limit, and then one more parameter is uh, I just forgot that parameter. So one parameter is limit. It say that how many limits, limits you wanted to create,
Okay. What is the
and then
maximum
in
limit we can give?
255 limit we could.
Okay. For example, I'm having a job which is going to create a GDG, output GDG in the first step. And then in third step, it is going to make use of the GDG, which is created already in the first step. Okay.
Mhm, mhm,
Then it is getting abandoned in the step third.
mhm.
So how would you refer the GDG when you restart that job?
Okay, so if the just to clarify the question, in the first step we have the one GTG. In second step we are creating the GTG, and the second step the job is getting failed. In the
Yeah.
third step, how we wanted to use the GTG. So for GTG, it's that GTG version gets updated only when the job completes successfully. So
Okay.
in this case, because step two has abandoned, the job has abandoned, that's why its version will not be incremented. So we need to just have the plus one version, which is created.
Okay. We'll go to COBOL now.
Okay.
How can you pass the values to the COBOL? What are the different options?
Uh, so for passing the value to COBOL from JCL, there are different ways. So one way is using the file which is always used. Second way is passing through the in-stream data set, in-stream data,
Okay.
sysintd star, and third way is passing through the palm. So it all depends on what is our requirement. Based on that, we can.
Okay. So what is the maximum limit when you are trying to pass the values through palm?
So for palm, we can pass maximum 100 character.
If it exceeds 100?
If it's more than 100, then it's better to pass through the file or in stream.
Okay. Um, can you differentiate among comp variables? Comp2, comp3, comp1?
Okay, so comp we uses uh, when we need to save the spaces. If we wanted to save the spaces to have the better programming, so in those cases we uses the comp. So it all depends on that what is our requirement and what will be the data side of the data type of the variable. So if suppose that our data type is integer, signed an integer. In that case, we can use the comp. Uh, so advantage will be that if our data if data size is uh, 0 to 4, in that case it will take only 2 byte. If we don't use the comp, in that case if the data, if we are giving the 4, in that case it will take 4 byte. But if we are using the comp, in that case it will have only 2 bytes. And comp,
Okay, how will you
and
read
if
that comp variable?
okay, so comp data is stored as a binary in the memory,
Okay,
but when we are displaying it, it will be displayed a normal way. If
okay,
suppose we wanted to display uh, uh, length of the, suppose generally length we define as a comp, we can display length of variable a. It will display the normal way.
okay. What about comp3?
Okay, comp3 is a packed decimal, so it is another way of storing data. So one more advantage of comp3 of comp is that in this case, whatever the size of the data, it will store as a nibble, means it will take only half of the byte. Suppose that in case of comp, if our size is 18, it will take 8 byte. But in case of comp3, if our size is 20, in that case it will take 10 byte, 11 byte. And one more advantage of comp is that in comp we could have the decimal data also, but in comp we can't have, we should have only integer data.
Okay. So okay, we'll come to the string concept.
So,
Example, I'm having a variable like with it is having spaces in between. Okay. For
okay.
example,
Hmm.
welcome to the computer means
Hmm.
in between we are having spaces, right? I just
Okay,
want
okay,
only the letters, only the bytes should be counted. How can you achieve this?
okay. So you wanted to know the length of each field. Welcome to computer. This is three
Yes.
fields.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what we could do that we could unstring this variable into three variables. The first variable will have welcome, second variable will be to, and third will be computers. Now what we could do that we can know the length of each variable, and each variable, for example, first variable is our welcome. So in welcome we have a 7 byte. So for this one, what we could do that we could use the different ways to counting the length, but we could use the uh, more efficient way, which is using perform varying, perform varying IDX, uh, and then
No, I
a
don't want to
length
use
of
the perform here. Is there any other way
okay.
to count the characters?
Yes, we could use simply the inspect to count the variable, inspect variable a, variable one, telling telling into length a uh, before initial spaces. So in that case, tally one will have the length of the variable a.
Okay. Suppose in a file, the first record is having spaces. I'm not sure how much spaces are there, but that
Mhm.
word is present in some 110th like that. But we are not
Mhm.
knowing that whether it is present in that particular position or not. But we want to count that. We want to read that word variable exactly. How will you achieve this? We are having
Okay, so
spaces before that.
okay, so one full record have the spaces in that one. So we wanted to know the how many spaces it has. Is it?
No, not the
Sorry,
spaces
I
I'm
mean.
asking. The
Okay,
field I
can
want
you come?
to display it
Okay,
without any spaces.
I didn't get. Can you repeat the question once again, please? Sorry.
See, in first record, I'm
Hmm.
having some spaces from the
Okay.
first itself. Okay, from the
Okay.
first position onwards, I'm having
Hmm.
some spaces. For example,
Okay.
I'm just telling to you like 110th position,
Hmm.
some fields are present. For example,
Okay.
mainframe. Okay,
Okay.
but
Okay.
we are not sure whether in which position it is present. I just
Okay.
want to retrieve this field. How can you achieve this? Using inspect.
Okay. So, using inspect, if we know that what field we are looking for, then we could simply uh, inspect a variable name, um, uh, and uh, I'm
No,
sorry, still
even
question
the
is not
variable name
clear to.
also. For example, variable A
Hmm.
is there. Okay, in variable A,
Okay. Hmm. Okay. Okay. Variable A, which has a length of 110 character, and it has some spaces between that. Is it the question? I'm sorry, I've just missed the question. I'm not getting understand. Can you once again, please? Can you repeat it? Hello.
you got it. What I'm asking.
Uh, no. Uh,
Okay, no problem.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the
Yeah,
question.
yeah,
I
no
don't
problem.
want to
Okay.
answer the wrong way before
Yeah, yeah, no
understanding
problem.
question.
Okay. Can you explain the concept of array?
Okay. Yes, array is that it's used if you wanted to process the contiguous memory location, or you wanted to process the table data in COBOL program.
Okay. Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. I just asked where you will declare the linkage section, whether in subprogram or main program.
Okay, so linkage, we it depends on the what is our requirement. If it says main program and sub-program concept, in that case, we need to declare the linkage section in the sub-program.
Okay.
But we could also suppose that there could be a scenario in which we are passing the in-stream data. In that case, we need to define the it in the main program only. The linkage section in that variable we will pass the data.
Okay. How will you identify whether a program is called static or dynamic?
So,
By seeing the code itself.
so by seeing the code itself, we could just go and see that whether the call is using using variable, or it is just direct program name call. If it's using variable, it means that it's a dynamic call. If it's a direct program name call program PGMA, in that case, it is likely that it is a static call.
Okay. By default, which compiler
But
it will use?
by default, it will use the dynam, so dynamic call.
Okay. So I am giving it in a dynamic call. Okay.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
I'm using the compiler option as static. No dynam I'm giving. So in
Okay.
which mode it will run?
If we are giving the compiler of dynam, in that case, it will take
No, no.
the
The program is
static.
in program
Hmm.
I'm calling it as a dynamic using variable I'm using. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
I'm coding in a dynamic call.
Okay.
Okay. But I'm using the compiler option as no dynam.
Okay.
So how the
So,
job, how
um,
it will execute,
uh,
whether it is in static or dynamic.
as per my understanding, the compiler option is the get the first priority, so it will run as a static. That's why at that time I told you that it will depend. Most of the cases, if we can see that it's a very well call, it could be dynamic, but we can't say 100%. So,
Okay. So how will you read the file in reverse order?
okay, okay. Reading the files in reverse order. So, if our file is KSDS,
Okay.
in that case, what we could do that we could start the position. Suppose that we could start from the end of the file, and uh, then we could just browse it, browse next from there, browse previous using browse previous. We could browse one by one from the. If we don't want to use that way, what we could do that we could uh, uh, if we could use the sort, we could add the sequence number, and we could sort the file into the uh, reverse order, and then we read from. In that case, we need to add two more steps or one more
This
step to
is
just.
in case of KSDS you have said, right?
Yes, in case of KSDS, we can use the start command to set the position
In case
from
of
where we
ESDS,
want. In case of ESDS, one way is using the this one sorting. We could add the sequence number in the file, sort it based on the sequence in descending order, and in that case, the last record will be at first position. We could read
how
very
will you
simple
give
way.
that sequence number? Through JCL?
Yes, using sort, outrec sequence. If we wanted to add and start, then we could add the start sequence number, and if we wanted to add the 10 byte, we could add sequence number comma 10, and then we could give the whole file length,
Okay.
whole file details.
Can you delete the record in ESDS?
No, in ESDS we can't delete the record, but in KSDS we could do that.
How will you add the records in ESDS?
In ESDS we can't add record in the middle. We could replace it, but we could append the record uh, at,
Okay.
in the case ESDS.
What statement you will use for appending?
Uh, For appending, you mean to say that in which mode we need to open the file
Yeah, yeah.
and then, yes. So for uh, input output, uh, input output mode.
Okay. So what are the different locks in DB2?
Locks are shared lock, exclusive lock, and intent intent to update lock.
Okay. Which is the default isolation level?
Okay. So a default isolation, it depends on the what what we are going to do, if we are going to update or whether we are referring the DB2 for the select. If it's select, the default is uncommitted read. But
Sorry, for
if
the
we
select.
select operation,
Okay.
browse operation, in that case it will be uncommitted read UR. But if it's update or delete, in that case it will be cursor stability CS.
Okay. Okay. You are aware of commit and rollback, right? So
Yes.
I am having some 10,000 records. Okay.
Okay.
In that 5023rd record, I'm getting error, like
Mm-hmm.
it got abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
How will you rectify this?
Okay. If our program is using the restart logic, and our last committed record will be available in the
How will you set that
table of.
committed records?
Okay, so for that, what happened that we generally have one table in which we set the frequency of the
Okay.
restart frequency. Suppose that restart frequency we have set is 100 in that case. So after each 100 record processing, it will commit the record. So in this case, suppose that 5023 record, it failed at 5023. In that case, 5000 record will be committed and 23 record will be rolled back. So last committed point will be the 5000 records. So that last committed record will be saved in our one of the table. So when we restart the program, so it will go and check one by one the last committed record. It will verify that whether it's the last committed record or not. Once it reaches the last committed record, it will start processing. Before the It will ignore the 4,999 records and then start processing from the 5,001 record.
Okay. Um, can you explain that COBOL DB2 compilation process?
Yes, sure. So, there is a difference between the normal COBOL program and COBOL DB2 program, and that one difference is that DB2 is a different system, and COBOL is different system. So, and if we have the different system, then we need to connect two system with some communication. For that purpose, we need the one SQL CA, and that is mandatory. And second thing is that, okay, now I'm coming to the whole process. So in this case, what happened that because there are two systems, we need to uh, divide the code into two parts, COBOL part and DB2 part, because COBOL compiler will not able to understand the DB2 statement. So for that, we have the pre-compilation process. In pre-compilation process, generally three things happens. First thing is to just simply validating the syntax of all the SQL statement, whether it's correct or not. Second thing is will just parse the COBOL uh, DB2 DB2 details into DBRM and change those in as a COBOL call statement. And third is putting the timestamp between the both side, COBOL program also and DB2 side also. Then the COBOL part will go to the compilation process and linkage process. It will have the source code available, and the same way the DBRM side will either go for the plan or package and prepare the bind process bind plan or bind package process and prepare the access path, which for which the data will be stored into the DB2 directory. DB2 directory, and the COBOL program, the load will be available in the load library. So at the runtime, when we are running, both the part, the timestamp will be checked, and if it's matching, then program will start executing.
Okay. Are you comfortable with kicks?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so the transaction IDs, right? The system transaction IDs. So what does it mean? Like, if I want to open a particular file, case file,
Mhm.
so what are all the things, what are all the requirements we need? The tables, PCT, FCT, those.
Okay. So in this, what happened that when we give the transaction into the terminal. In that case, it will go to the transaction table and see that whether this transaction is defined or not. And if it's defined, what is the program associated with it, or what is the file associated with it, will be task control table. So from there, it will allocate the memory, and then uh, then assign this task to the task. And from there, it will get the exact main program name. I'm sorry, I'm
What is the
not
use of PPT?
program
What is the use of
program.
PPT?
Okay, PPT. PPT is a processing program uh, table. So
Mm-hmm.
it will have the actual program which going to use. For for example, if for main program, if we from which if we are calling the any sub program, those details will be stored in the PPT table. Processing. What is the actual program which is going to process?
Okay. How will you achieve the performance? For example, one particular job is running for a long time, and daily it is
Mhm.
taking, it is processing 20 million records, and it is taking more than 2 to 3 hours. So how can you achieve the
Mhm.
performance?
So for that, if it's the COBOL DB2 program, so in that case, need to see that whether the query is taking longer time for the processing. So for that, if we could try to do the explain and see that what is the access path it is using, or if it's taking the greater if query is taking longer time, in that case we could try to uh, modify the query in a different way so that it could. So there are different ways to do that. One way is to, if one of the uh, highest cost taking process is sort in DB2, we need to see that if we could avoid the sort in DB2 for the large record. A second thing is that like a scan, if we are using the that kind of a scan on larger table, so it is taking a lot of cost. So if we could, we need to see that if we could remove that. Third thing is that is if we have the indexes defined on the table, we need to see that if we could use all the indexes into the query so that its performance can be improved. The fourth thing is that we need to give the in the where clause we need to provide uh, those predict before, which will reduce the further processing. Suppose that if DB2 processing happening in the it will take the first predicate. If it is reducing the data into half, Then the second stage, uh, uh, the processing will be half. But in first step, if we are reducing the uh, only for 10 or 15 record, in that case, the second step, the uh, processing will be higher. So we need in the first, second, third, we need to give those predicate before, which will reduce the query processing time. So we just
Okay.
need to rearrange the where clause predicate.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Kundan. I'm done with the interview.
Thank you so much.